our Chongqing adventure enters its final days. And what yet awaited us was the city, the beating heart. The famed skyline along the Yangtze, and with it, its sights and sounds. It's all and new.
Okay, so when they told us that we were going to visit the town square and the People's Hall, this is not quite what I expected. That is a fancy building up there. It's pretty cool that it looks like there's a bunch of locals also hanging out here. It's kind of like a public park, I guess, in the morning.
The Great Hall was completed back in 1954 and remains in use for government meetings and cultural events and such.
So if those pictures there are accurate, that's some pretty impressive looking ice cream. Not gonna buy one though, it's like 19 grand. Don't really feel like ice cream at the moment.
It was possible to enter the Great Hall with a small fee, but we decided not to. And the square it overlooks is the idyllic scene of a busy Chinese park in the morning, with people doing all sorts of stuff, including Tai Chi and calligraphy with water. Anyway, after strolling about for a bit, we were off to the next location.
Okay, so this little building here is the former residence of Zhou Enlai, who is the inaugural premier of the People's Republic of China. Prominent enough name that I've heard of him before as well. And he lived in Chongqing for 8 years, and presumably this is where he lived while he was here.
So Zhou Enlai was the first premier of the People's Republic of China, and this, his former residence, preserves many curious items, artifacts, rooms used by him, as well as various luminaries of the fledgling Chinese Communist Party.
So this was the premier's bedroom and office, and I gotta say, it's got a pretty great view of the Yangtze River from here.
Zhou Enlai himself was, it seems, a well-regarded leader, popular amongst the people, and apparently served as a moderating influence on the chairman Mao, even shielding many from the threat of the Red Guards amidst the chaos of the Cultural Revolution.
It's pretty neat looking at the skyline here from this building that almost certainly didn't exist back in the day when it was in use. So there's an air raid shelter built in underneath the structure. And somehow the shelter just leads straight to the exit. So
beyond the exit was a little exhibition area with some additional history and context. For what is essentially a free museum, not bad. We soon found ourselves deeper in the bustle of the city, when we first head into a restaurant to get some lunch, featuring attachable chopsticks, as well as Chongqing grilled fish. So Chongqing Kaoyu has become quite the phenomenon
in Malaysia and in Singapore as well. So this is presumably the real deal. We'll see how it tastes. Actually remarkably similar. It's good.
I had half expected it to be potently laced with numbing pepper, but thankfully that wasn't the case. The spice was controlled and the flavor was good. Meanwhile, just across the road was a hive of activity that we were presently about to dive into. In the middle of all the bustle was the Jiefangbei, or the Liberation Monument, a tower-like structure standing surrounded by the neighboring skyscrapers.
So this is probably like the center of the city. The guide called it the center of the universe, and this structure over here is the Jiefangbei, which is the Liberation Commemoration Monument, I guess. So kind of the history behind this monument here is that Chongqing, being kind of a city in the mountain, as you imagine, is a natural military fortress, and it was a bastion of Chinese resistance back during World War II when they were fighting the Japanese. So this monument was erected at the end of the war, hence, the liberation theme. Apparently, when they first erected this monument, this was the tallest structure in this entire area. But as you can see right now, it is almost the shortest thing here. Everything around it is just towering. So that's the march of time for you. Anyhow, history aside, this entire area around the monument is just this sprawling hive of activity. There's shops, there's shopping malls. So we're just going to be spending the afternoon here, just kind of doing some exploring and eating some interesting food as we can find them. So this paper is made out of rice, so you can actually just eat it. That's really convenient. Very sweet. Okay, so this here is something that I've been itching to try. This is rabbit meat, so let's take a look. So this here is the back leg of the rabbit, and this is the head, which is supposed to be a delicacy. Looks kind of creepy, to be honest. Okay, here goes rabbit back leg. It looks like chicken, doesn't it? You know how they always say tastes like chicken? Tastes like freaking chicken. And now the head. I think it tastes a bit better than the leg. There's barely any meat on this though. Oh, and the peppers. A bit too much for me, the peppers. Honestly, just tastes like chicken. So 6 out of 10. Not sure if recommend, but it's an interesting experience, I guess.
There was well more interesting food than we can eat, but we walked around and feasted our eyes anyway.
Holy crap, so that was pig brains. I'm not sure I'm up for that, but that's pretty interesting. It's not a mistranslation, in case you're wondering. That's actually accurate. So in the end, it's just a store that sells a whole bunch of random stuff. It's a funny way to try to get people into your store though. I mean, it worked for us, I guess. So this really fancy building here is apparently the art center. It's basically like a theater. You can go there and you can watch like musical performances, things like that.
We walked in the direction of the river, towards another famous city landmark, the Hongyadong. And after navigating a rowdy elevator queue and some stairs, we emerged in a beautiful alley of wooden stilt buildings.
So it's already pretty atmospheric. I think when the night hits, all of these are lights and it's all gonna light up. So that's why this place is so popular. So I know this is a tourist trap, but honestly, it does look kind of cool.
The area was apparently once an ancient fortress, and while the 11 stories of Diaojiaolou, perched against the cliff face, is modern built, they mimic the traditional Bayou style of yesteryears. Anyhow, it was dinner time, and tonight we shall dine on perhaps Chongqing's most well-known dish, 火锅, hot pot. Chongqing's brand of hot pot is of course oily and spicy. And on top of helping the locals cope with the year-long humid weather, the strong flavor apparently also help mask the gaminess of the tripe, stomach, liver used by poorer folk during early iterations of the dish. Here though, of course, we had plenty of proper meat and vegetables.
Okay, so that was the vaunted Chongqing hot pot. Pretty nice. Although the heat and the beer has given me quite a bit of a flush here. You can't see because of the blue, but meanwhile, take a load of this stuff. Look at that. So something that they do here as well is costume photo shoots, where you can kind of don a traditional dress and get some photos. So my mom was interested in that. We are going to look for a reasonable shop to do that, and yeah, I got some photos.
There were loads of shops catering to both locals and tourists, and the advice we got was to go for medium-priced ones and avoid the cheapest. This one seemed professional and went about the whole affair like a well-oiled machine. We then head out to scenic spots for the shoot.
So we're just kind of following them around on this photo shoot and just checking out the views alongside. Look at this, this is amazing. Actually, a lot of people doing this photo shoot stuff. They're just kind of walking about, looking for places where they can get a good shot, I guess. God dang, it looks good. I saw this on YouTube. It looked like, but in person, it really looks impressive. I'm pretty impressed. The shoot is done. We have not seen the results yet, but I expect they'll be pretty good. Just because I think this is just an excellent place to do this sort of thing. The scenery is beautiful, the lighting is excellent, so... Okay, so we are done. The tour group has left already, so we're gonna have to try to take a cab or try to use Didi or something to get back to the hotel.
The Didi pickup area was a little ways away, and as we squeezed our way cautiously through the massive crowd, still we admired the ethereal, radiant complex.
Very hot place, I think.
Yeah.
Crowded, I see.
A quiet EV ferried us through the glittering city lights, back to our hotel for the night.
Okay, so we're actually going to get on the Ciqikou, the local light rail train, I guess, and we're going to be taking it to this stop where the tracks apparently actually pass through this skyscraper, so that's the plan.
The train reminded me somewhat of the Tama monorail in Tokyo. And while the experience isn't anything remarkable, the riverside scenery was nice.
So, nothing too unusual about the experience. Probably the only thing out of the ordinary is you actually have to scan all of your bags every time you want to take the train. Locals included, apparently.
This is the famous Liziba station, and the train had deposited us on the 8th floor of the skyscraper that it passes through. We were presently going to have a look at what that looks like from the outside, not expecting the sheer size of the crowd we were joining.
To be entirely honest with you, the most remarkable thing about this place is how incredibly popular this relatively routine thing is. I think this is just a conspiracy. A whole bunch of street peddlers has got together and decided to manufacture a tourist attraction so that they can get more customers. I mean, I think the Yangtze River back here looks more pretty than whatever that is.
Jokes on me, that is not in fact the Yangtze, but the Jialing River, though both rivers converge only a short distance away. Having experienced this marvel of marketing, we headed on to a simple lunch near our next attraction.
So I believe this is Ciqikou, which the guide tells us is the one actually preserved ancient town area in Chongqing. Everything else is built in relatively modern times, but this apparently is a genuine ancient town area.
Indeed, Ciqikou town apparently boasts a history of about 1,000 years.
Some construction going on here, hopefully not too extensive.
was all pretty overwhelming, and amidst the activity we spotted an opening into a small alleyway and ducked inside to find something rather unexpected.
字旁的词呢，像碗这里的词仅仅只代表烧制好的陶瓷，而十字旁的词包含瓷土、瓷矿、陶瓷等等。
We found ourselves in the Baoshan Guan, an elegant Taoist temple from the Qing dynasty, centuries old. During World War II, it was used as a school and once taught a young Samuel Ting, who later won the Nobel Prize for Physics.
Super cool little corner there, actually really liked it.
Back at the bustling street, I decided to try my hand at pounding some rice cakes. We also bought some and they tasted great, very similar to the muaci we get in Malaysia. A long flight of stairs led down to the river. Ciqikou was for centuries prominent as a port and market town upon the Jialing, and its current name, meaning porcelain port, references its porcelain production as a port town during the Ming and Qing dynasties.
So that looks super cool. It's a very steep climb though, so I don't think my parents are up for it. I may try to come back later if I can to try to climb it on my own, but we keep going for now. So that is actually a cat cafe of sorts. Presumably you go in and you can play with the cats and have some tea. We're not going to do that right now though.
We were now in the quieter part of town, beautiful in its own way. After descending a flight of stairs off to the right, we came upon a serene tea house and decided it would be perfect for a break.
Anyway, so this is just a nice little tea house here with this small stream by the side and the Jialingjiang River all the way over there. Very nice and atmospheric. So the guy was saying that he built his shop around this 70-year-old tree that he was told not to touch. So it comes in from inside and then goes outside. So we're gonna go take a look. So this is a living tree here. These are decorations, but this is actually a little sprout that grew out of the trunk here. There is a hot pot shop upstairs, and this tree basically goes straight through the hot pot shop off the roof above. So pretty cool. So the guy, he was taking our order. He took one look at my camera and he was like, "Hey, you want to see this tree?" So we went and saw the tree. That was pretty cool.
The tea they served were unusual and maybe a bit of an acquired taste, but we nonetheless enjoyed the ambiance and hospitality.
Dude, super nice little shop, secluded here. Very quiet, very peaceful, very nice. But anyway, with my parents nicely settled, I'm going to go back to that temple earlier and try to climb to the top and see what I can find. Okay, here we go. So this is Baolun Temple. Legend has it that it was built during the Tang Dynasty, which, if true, would date it more than 1,000 years, I believe. Apparently, a Ming emperor that was overthrown also escaped here to live a hidden, quiet life as a monk. So, pretty interesting.
Indeed, and for that reason, this temple is also called Longye, Hidden Dragon. And Ciqikou itself was also once called Longye Zheng. Located high over the ancient town and filled with intricate aged carvings, the temple was a spectacle of beauty and mystique, and seemed to carry an old dignity despite the chattering visitors.
What an incredible temple. Also, when you're here in Chongqing, the autumn colors are not often very pronounced, but sometimes, like here, they just kind of come in and gives that extra accent, that just brings the whole aesthetic to another level. Fantastic. Very beautiful. This was worth coming out for.
Alas, time was short. I went down to meet up with my parents, and it was soon time to leave Ciqikou.
Something that occurred to me is that if you didn't know how pinyin works and you saw the romanized version of the name of this place, you probably wouldn't know how to read it. Okay, so this place is Danzishi Old Street, which is apparently not very old at all. It's old only in the sense that the buildings are built in kind of an old style. I think kind of evoking some of the buildings from the time when Chongqing was one of the first cities to reopen the trade with the West. So sort of old style Western-ish looking buildings. So I guess when the street is not actually old, you get access to this sort of modern conveniences, which is nice.
In the end, Danzishi is really just a beautiful thematic shopping street. But for our last evening in China, it's not a bad place to just wander about and soak it all in.
Okay, this seems to be the extent of it. Time to head back down, I suppose. That building over there, by the way, that looks kind of familiar. It looks like the Marina Bay Sands. That is actually Raffles City, Chongqing. A Singaporean architect had a hand in designing that.
One final meal in Chongqing, of course, with all the signature spice and oil. There was still some time before the flight, so we went and watched something of a show, and I was surprisingly allowed to film it. It was alright, though especially by Chinese standards, nothing too special. So here, finally, against Chongqing's radiant skyline over the Yangtze, our adventure in China at long last comes to its conclusion.
Cucumber juice. Disgusting. Looking at it now in the morning, you can really tell how the buildings are just kind of hewn into the mountainside. Very unique. There's this robot that is inside the lift with us here. I think it's just like delivering something to one of the guests. Bye bye. So my lens actually fell out of my bag earlier while I was having breakfast in the hotel, and the staff actually tracked me down to give my lens back. So compliments to the staff here of Hanwen Hotel. And guess what? Freaking Yakun is here. Curse us! So my parents went and tried the Yakun here. Review of Yakun in Chongqing. The coffee, the tea is great. It tastes just like it does in Singapore. The kaya toast is great. It is extremely expensive though. So that's the review.
Thank you very much for watching this series. And next time, we'll be back to more adventures in Japan.